So it's fair to say that Ethan Klein has been massively spiraling and has been playing the victim for like a month at this point in his ongoing feud with Hasan Piker after their messy breakup. It's also pretty clear that Ethan is actually being fed in real time on the podcast clips of Hasan from the Destiny Discord as well, while claiming not to know him, and also claiming to care so much about anti-Semitism that he has to just constantly attack Hasan for being anti-Semitic, at the same time being fed info from a community of a guy who spent multiple days streaming with Nick Fuentes, which pretty much says everything you want to know about this guy, and also seems to just be defending the most insane things right now. He said Yoav Gallant, him and his wife, said he was a good guy. This is one of the guys being investigated for war crimes in Gaza. One of the two people. The only other one, realistically, is Netanyahu and this guy, who they both praise on the show. And also recently defended the violent Israeli thugs in Amsterdam. And this is all coming from a guy who claims not to be a Zionist at all. But he's had his brain fully broken by left-wing people criticising him over his support for the Israeli state. Not for what Israel are doing right now, although, again, he just seems like an idiot if that's the case. If he genuinely doesn't know, if he genuinely doesn't support what Israel are doing right now while allowing someone on his show, his wife, to say that Gallant is a good person, then it just shows Ethan has always been stupid. And he is stupid. I don't think he's that stupid. I'm going to give him a pass, but he is a total fucking idiot. And I want to talk about all of this today because even when Hasan has been calling out actual anti-Semitism, he's saying it's not good enough because Hasan is too critical of Zionism. And here's the main thing, right? Ethan's meltdown is so bad, even paying members of the H3 YouTube channel, they're turning against him now and they're sick of all this whining about Hasan. So I want to show you the recent meltdown and what's been happening. So a recent clip was going around on Twitter of that Myron guy from Fresh and Fit going like full mask off fash on a crazy rant about Jewish people. Like some of the most anti-Semitic things I've probably ever heard. I wouldn't call him like mainstream because he's like a fringe figure, but a popular figure even say. So Hasan calls him out. This is how Ethan responds. So again, Hasan is using his platform to call out insane anti-Semitism. Ethan says, Myron is an easy dunk. He makes it incredibly easy to virtue signal that you are against anti-Semitism. If Hasan cared about anti-Semitism, he would listen to his Jewish friend when he expressed his genuine concern for the anti-Semitism festering in his own community. If Hasan cared about anti-Semitism, he would stop purity testing every Jew based on Zionist, anti-Zionist, a term that has lost all meaning. 90% of Jews globally would be considered a Zionist, a term that encapsulates both religious supremacists who believe they have a mandate from God to settle in the West Bank, and every secular reformed Jew in the world who thinks Israel should continue to exist. Absolutely wild. It's funny that he's trying to say like, oh yeah, 90% of Jews support Zionism, all the way from like religious extremists to secular people. Does that make it okay? Does that somehow make it okay? And should Hasan be okay with that? Because 90% of Jews support that. Again, you're still arguing for an ideology that is saying we should build a country on top of another group of people. This country was based on like the most terrible crimes against humanity and is upheld for these crimes against humanity. It doesn't matter if you're not one of the extremists. You still believe the state should be maintained like that. And if you support that right now in the face of everything that's going on, when the real face of this ideology is showing itself to the world, there is no issue with that. And you aren't an anti-Semite if this is your purity test. Absolutely like insane logic. And it's just funny that he's like, oh, Hasan, please read my crazy rantings on social media instead of listening to out of context clips about me. Now, unironically, Ethan actually made a really good point while saying like, yeah, everyone supports Zionism, including like more secular people, because on his podcast, his wife literally supported Gallant. Again, one of the two main people being investigated for war crimes, and these two don't strike me as the most religious people.
Yeah, Bibi sure. Like talk a lot, and Bibi's become a lot like Trump.
Yeah,
so.
Bibi's his guy. They're like homies. Bibi's celebrating last night.
Just the other day, Bibi fired a really good guy that a lot of people are pissed about, and he fired him because they had a disagreement, and that's like so Trump coded.
Well, he was like a moderating voice in the war room.
Yeah.
and he got rid of him, or at least a more moderate voice. I don't know anything about the guy. Just recognize his picture. He looked mean. I thought he was mean just because he looked mean.
No, it's not.
So he goes on to defend not only his wife for saying this, but defend some of the horrible things Gallant has said, while saying that Hasan is purity testing people who might be secular and still support Zionism, right? If they are like you, then yeah, he should be purity testing anyone who thinks like this. So he says, Hila doesn't know a lot about politics, but she knows that Gallant is opposed to Netanyahu and wants to end the war. That's why she said he's a good guy. He wants to end the war. She's right that it's objectively bad that he got fired. I mean, I wouldn't say that. And then a quote where Gallant called Palestinians human animals and saying there will be no electricity, food or fuel, which is actually like a war crime. Like he's saying, I'm going to do war crimes. This is on October 8th. Ethan defends this saying, this quote is from the 8th and it's a direct response to October 7th. I think it's reasonable assumption that he was talking about the Hamas militants that killed civilians. Either way, this is the guy in his war cabinet that wanted to end the war, and he was just fired. If you care about war ending, then you agree with Hila. Again, I don't think he's a good guy for wanting to end the war. I don't care that he was fired. He's going to be replaced by people just as bad as him, but more religious. And that is what has actually happened. This guy is one of the main architects of everything that's been happening. He's not a good guy, and you can't say that she was saying in the context of this he's a good guy, but he's actually a terrible guy. Why didn't she make that very, very clear, or why didn't anyone on the podcast make it very, very clear? In another post earlier, Ethan said the reason he calls out Hasan so much is that he has been fighting extremism his whole life, which is absolutely insane, by the way, because Ethan Klein not only was cracking jokes about Aaron Bushnell straight away, he's also platformed some of the most terrible people, Jordan Peterson, and in the wake of JonTron going full mask off Fash as well, he gave him a really sympathetic podcast where they basically downplayed everything he said. So Ethan has never fought extremism in his whole life. He's never cared about extremism. He's just had his brain broken by anti-Zionists on the left. And remember, he's been calling out everyone, like Majority Report for being anti-Semitic, Hasan for being anti-Semitic. And then he's complaining about extremism while defending this guy and defending his wife, saying he was a good guy. Who is the real extremist here? Doesn't strike me as Hasan. It strikes me as someone like you who's trying to defend one of the most terrible people this century and defend his wife praising this person. But anyway, because his brain has been broken, he made a podcast the other day and he's titled it now, Ethan Destroys Dan Bilzerian with Facts and Logic. But this is not what it was titled, and it actually had a different thumbnail. And in the video, what he does, I'm not joking, it's the Piers Morgan interview with this guy recently, right? And this guy is like a crazy right-wing anti-Semite whose opposition from Israel stems from being an anti-Semite, right? Got no problem calling that out. I hope Ethan's pleased with me. But at the same time, Ethan didn't show the interview first. He just went through the comments section showing anti-Semitic comments on a Piers Morgan video. Because he titled the video something else, people are just sick of it. And these are paying members, by the way. I'm going to read some of the comments. And these are the comments now, after like a whole day of it being up. I've got some earlier ones. And his audience are just sick of his whining. And yeah, anti-Semitism is rising like crazy at the moment. It doesn't really help that a lot of pro-Israel groups classify criticism of Israel as anti-Semitism. But yeah, there's no denying it's rising. You get crazy people like Nick Fuentes, that Myron guy, Dan Bilzerian. These are like actual anti-Semites. Jake Shields is another one. Crazy anti-Semites, and they're fascists as well, right? Got no problem calling them out. But Ethan hasn't been focusing his energy on these people. He was even criticizing Hasan for calling them out, right? He's going after left-wing people because he sees left-wing anti-Semitism as a massive problem because he's probably talking to Destiny and reading the Destiny subreddit all the time. Again, the guy who collabed with Nick Fuentes for a couple of days. And yeah, people are just sick of this now. So these people pay £6 a month for, you know, the membership on the channel. I took an edible in anticipation to watch the Zach Bryan segment. Instead, I just sat there high as fuck watching a man read YouTube comments for 40 minutes without showing us the actual video the comments are about. This ep had That Doesn't Work For Me Either energy. The last episode to hit 1 million views was in August, showing its decline. I felt like this was the biggest clickbait ever. Remember, the show wasn't titled what he titled it when I showed you it. I was stoked for Olivia's PowerPoint and tired of the non-stop rants. I don't think I have fun anymore watching this show, and it's coming from someone who never missed an episode, not one. I think what you're doing is important, but damn, it feels just heavy, and I genuinely don't think I can keep watching if it's going to be non-stop rants in the future. I really don't want to cancel my membership, but when I'm skipping 40% of the entire podcast, it's hard to feel like it's worth it. I think I'm going to cancel my membership. This is legitimately insane. I never comment, but I miss the old show. Another member saying, if Hasan was so anti-Semitic, why would he even do a podcast with Ethan? Obviously, he sees him as a friend and always had his back, while Ethan just backstabs him with no remorse. This stuff is starting to feel like a straight-up cult. Anyone who disagrees is a snarker. Anyone who challenges is the enemy. We only accept those who agree, and nuance is unacceptable. But at the same time, Ethan is a man of the people. Just because you say it doesn't make it true. Really disappointed to see this as a true fan. Starting to understand why so many have left the H3 train. Truly disappointed to see, especially as a fellow Jew. Echo chambers only hurt. Now it's time to remain open to different perspectives, and it's not happening here. Oh yeah, he also played a game later in the video called Twitch streamer or terrorist putting a photo of Hasan next to bin Laden. I think it was just taking quotes from Twitch streamers and you're deciding if they're a terrorist or not. Someone saying Ethan can talk about whatever he wants for as long as he wants. The Hasan next to bin Laden bit, however, went too far for me. My biggest issue with the episode was the game they played, having Hasan's picture along with bin Laden. That, if anything, warrants the criticism. It just gave a nasty Islamophobic connotation. And yeah, Ethan Klein is Islamophobic. He is insanely racist. Again, this is a guy who's defending someone like Yoav Gallant. It's basically defending Netanyahu and defending your wife calling Netanyahu a good guy, saying, oh yeah, but this guy wanted to end every terrible thing the Israelis are doing over a year later. That makes him a good guy. Not that he's even acknowledging this is just a power struggle within the political scene of Israel. It's not about any moral objection to killing. So as I'm showing you, the comments just don't stop. And again, these are all from people who pay. They pay for this YouTube channel. And they're all hating it. Like, I'm not joking, nearly all the comments were insanely negative. Again, I can't believe I paid hard-earned money on this. And of course he did respond saying, do you not think I want a fun episode? Do you think I enjoyed this? I do it because it's important. My heart and soul are bleeding right now. Piers Morgan interviewed a fascist to millions of people and all the comments supported him. This is significant and not normal. I would be a useless coward not to call this out. As a Jewish man, this makes me feel extremely unsafe and uneasy, and some of you hand wave it away because it's not fun, or use the chapters or take a break from the show, because I promise you I will continue to speak my mind on this topic. I don't think anyone has a problem with you calling these people out. I think people have a problem of you comparing Hasan to bin Laden, defending Israeli war criminals, and also having more energy for people like Hasan than people like Dan Bilzerian, Jake Shields. Because if these were the people you're going after, everyone on the left would agree with you, because we don't claim these anti-Semitic fascists. But when you're calling out people on the left for doing what you've been doing, and then complaining when people don't like you, constantly just reading comments on YouTube and going insane, then you just come across as a bit of a hypocrite. So at the end of the day, Ethan Klein's brain has been broken by Hasan, and he cannot take criticism of Israel because he feels like we're purity testing any Jewish person who supports the state of Israel, which is not something we're doing. He claimed he wasn't a Zionist before. He claimed when he was younger he was pro-Palestinian, but then he willingly became an Israeli citizen. Yes, Ethan, we do have a problem with that. It's not okay to willingly become a citizen of a settler colony apartheid state, and us criticizing people who support that apartheid state is not anything to do with someone's ethnicity or religion, because plenty of people who support that, like Mike Huckabee just got appointed the US ambassador to Israel, they are Christian evangelical Zionists who we also hate for supporting this state because it's fundamentally immoral. Yes, there are plenty of people who do say anti-Zionist stuff because they are just anti-Semites. And like I said, someone like that Myron guy is a perfect example of someone who does that. But again, when one of the people you don't like says it, then it's a problem. And then you're even calling like Sam Cedar and The Majority Report anti-Semitic, you know, a show which has a Jewish host. It's pretty clear your outrage is pretty selective. And are we really meant to have sympathy for secular, pro-Zionist Jewish people like yourself when you defend war criminals? Is this really a purity test to say what you posted here and before and what your wife said is not okay in any context? So it's pretty clear he's spiraling, probably getting radicalized into extreme centrism by the Destiny community. So I expect more, you know, more posts like this. And it's funny that he wants to talk about this non-stop, but he doesn't want to talk to anyone on the left who might have criticism of him for these posts. He just lumps us in. He literally called Hasan Nick Fuentes, by the way, while talking to the community of the guy who hung around Nick Fuentes and sanitized him. And he's probably directly talking to the guy who is friends with Nick Fuentes, by the way. And he's calling Hasan Nick Fuentes and not Destiny. So that is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.